From a terrifying hut full of mannequins to a mysterious coffin found at the burial site of King Richard III, and even a horrifying trail of doll heads that will make your hair stand on end. Here are 10 of the creepiest things ever found in the deep woods. Mannequin Horror Hut. Out of all the creepy things found in the woods, a horrifying hut occupied by spooky mannequins is right up there at the top. While a vlogger in the UK named Steve was checking out a rural patch of forest, he came across an extremely disturbing discovery. He found a makeshift hut built of scraps of wood and filled with mannequins, most of them covered in a red substance that closely resembled blood. According to Steve, nobody was home when he discovered the strange room in the middle of the forest, and he could not figure out what it had been used for. Inside, there were children's toys, random bathroom appliances strewn across the dirt floor, and even pictures of somebody's family. It was an extremely messed up place, and Steve simply could not understand it. And to make things even more bizarre, there were mannequins found outside the hut, leaning against trees as if put there to guard the creepy shack. And they too were soaked in a strange blood-like substance. Coffin within a coffin. It's one thing to find a coffin, but what about a coffin within a coffin? This strange archaeological artifact was unearthed at the final resting place of Richard III, deep in the English countryside. A team from the University of Leicester found the artifact while digging at the site where the medieval king was found back in September. They lifted the lid of the medieval stone coffin, expecting to find a body, but instead they were shocked to find a lead coffin inside of the stone coffin. They have yet to open up the second box, as the archaeologist believes that they should carry out extensive tests before opening it so that they don't damage whatever remains are inside. But they do believe that within the secondary coffin is a high-status burial. They simply don't know who it is yet. It could be an infamous 14th century knight named Mutton, or it could even be William of Nottingham, who died way back in 1330. For now, this mysterious coffin is being taken back to the university, where it can be properly studied and analyzed. Death in the deep woods. Moving forward to a more recent horror. This next story comes from the days of the global pandemic, when authorities from Vancouver Island discovered 3 bodies at a remote part of the Melrose Forest Service Road near the popular tourist destination of Qualicum Beach. According to the Vancouver Island RCMP, more homeless people have been wandering deep into the forest because of the coronavirus pandemic, essentially turning the woods into an unofficial squatter zone. But because more of these people are wandering farther from society, they are having a harder time living. It's also a pretty lawless place out in the forest, which could account for the 3 bodies that were discovered, 2 of which were inside of a disgusting trailer that had been burned to a crisp. It's unclear what kind of madness went on to result in the deaths of these people, but it's safe to say it was nothing good. And now, who knows how many more corpses are out there in the unpopulated woods. Horrifying Bug. A horrifying monster has recently been spotted in the forests of Bali, and it looks like it came straight out of an episode of Stranger Things. The creature, which has tentacles, way too many legs, and an oddly fuzzy body, was caught on camera crawling across the ceiling of a rural home in Bali during a storm. At first glance, the horrifying bug almost looks like a locust, with octopus tentacles slithering out of its backside. However, the creature is not actually a shadow monster. It's something known as a Creatonatus gangus, which is basically just a moth. It's a moth with a red or yellow body and 4 disgusting tentacles that apparently emerge when the insect is in the mood to mate. The tentacles are scent glands that expel horrifying pheromones, which work to attract female moths. It's undoubtedly the most horrifying bug on the planet, and let's hope it stays far away from civilization. Bigfoot Creature. Speaking of horrifying creatures, there's nothing quite as creepy as discovering a massive Bigfoot monster stalking through the rural woods while you're trying to go for a leisurely hike. According to a report from The Sun, 2 hikers heard strange noises while taking a stroll at the Salt Fork State Park in Ohio. They thought it was just a wild animal at first until they came across what can only be described as a Sasquatch. The hikers even caught this creepy monster on film, with its big hairy body lumbering through the trees. And say what you want about people who upload Bigfoot videos to YouTube, but this one looks pretty legitimate. It's clearly not a bear, and unless it's a person in a gorilla suit, I would have to say that these hikers really did come across Bigfoot. And it's not that surprising considering the area. There have been over 36 sightings of Bigfoot reported in the exact same spot since the middle of the 80s. How exactly he has stayed hidden for so long is a total mystery. Alabama cemeteries. Alabama has to be one of the creepiest places in North America, and be prepared to take Alabama's creepiness to a whole new level. According to Alabama pioneers, there are cemeteries hidden throughout the forests and local communities of the great state of Alabama, many of them lost, overgrown, and utterly forgotten. There are also potter's fields hidden deep in the woods, which are cemeteries for those who could not afford to bury their loved ones in a proper graveyard. These are some seriously creepy places, and perhaps most notable is the Spanish flu pandemic cemetery near Birmingham, with most of its graves marked only by unnamed crosses. Basically, you need to be careful when wandering too deep into any Alabama woodland, as you're probably never very far from an old creepy graveyard. Missing skeleton. It's not every day that you find a skeleton sitting in the middle of the woods, but that's exactly what happened with an engineering crew who had been working in a wooded area in New Jersey. The workers were shocked to find the bones of an unidentified man directly exposed to the weather. The bones appeared to have been there for quite a long time, and after the police were called in and there was a bit of an investigation, the authorities discovered a pocket knife, a wristwatch, and a wallet with the man's ID in it. The skeleton ended up belonging to a man named William Schmidbauer, who had gone missing 11 years prior. This guy was a Vietnam veteran who went missing in September of 2007 after his wife woke up inside their home and found him vanished. His car was in the driveway and his money was still sitting on the counter. He had literally vanished into thin air. To this day, police have no idea what happened to William or how his skeleton ended up in the remote New Jersey woods. It's a baffling mystery. Who took William from his home, and who dumped his skeleton in the woods 11 years later? Doll's Head Trail. Everyone loves going for a good hike, but you have to be an exceptionally brave person to go on the hike through the Doll's Head Trail, probably the most terrifying pathway through the woods that you will ever come across. The trail is narrow, the woods are thick, and there are disembodied baby dolls everywhere. They may be set up as an art display, but it's still incredibly disturbing. There are all kinds of horrifying objects scattered throughout the forest, but most notable of all are the doll heads, many of which are placed beside the trail to freak out the visitors. This horrifying park is located near Atlanta, Georgia. It's something you should only go to if you have a high tolerance for horror. But this trail isn't all bad. If you look past the headless action figures, the random bowling pins, and the creepy decapitated doll head with the captain's hat, you can still enjoy the sights and sounds of nature. There's even a small public library deep within the wooded trail where you can sit down and read your favorite horror novel while surrounded by creepy dolls in an even creepier forest. Mummified Koala. It's not clear where this next thing came from, but it's definitely creepy. It was allegedly found somewhere in Australia, and according to the experts, it's actually a mummified koala bear corpse. I know, it's extremely hard to believe when looking at an adorable koala bear and trying to compare it to this black and twisted monster. However, it could very well be true. After all, when you strip away the fur and cuteness from any animal, what you have underneath is a terrifying skeleton, stretched muscle, and exposed claws and bones. The only strange part about this mummified monster is that it appears to be sitting in the branches of a tree. It seems unrealistic because normally insects or other creatures would come along and help decompose the body. The only way to mummify something to this degree is usually by throwing it into a tar pit or leaving it on top of Mount Everest. The Aldridge Sawmill. Deep in the woods of Texas is perhaps the most disturbing and frightening abandoned place in all of North America. It's called the Aldridge Sawmill, and it began life early in the 1900s. The sawmill grew to be a massive production plant with employee housing, a blacksmith shop, and various other community buildings, including a small school. But in 1911, a fire destroyed much of the sawmill's original wooden buildings. They were replaced in 1912, but another fire in 1914 devastated the sawmill yet again. And if you can believe it, another fire in 1919 finally ended the Aldridge Sawmill and condemned it to death. 3 fires were too much to handle, and the entire business was scrapped and abandoned. Since then, the sawmill has been empty, but it has yet to be destroyed. You can still find this creepy remnant of the past untouched for 100 years. It's been overgrown, a couple of ghosts have moved in, and some unpleasant humans have marked a lot of it with graffiti, but it's still creepy, and it's still not somewhere you want to visit at night, especially without a ghost hunter with you. Which of these discoveries is the creepiest, and what kind of creepy things have you found in the woods? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and come back soon.